Hi, everybody. Welcome to Think From Home with Confirm It. Today, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Omer Minkara, who is joining us from Aberdeen. He is the Vice President and Principal Analyst with Aberdeen, and we're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. So, as usual, I brought along my adult beverage. You can't see it. There it is. Okay. And Omer has his. He's opted for coffee. I'm obviously jumping right into the beer because it's Friday afternoon and that's what I do. But today we're going to talk about some important stuff, I think. It's been a pretty rough year, right? Uh, Businesses are struggling, economies are struggling, people are struggling. We're working from home. We need a break. And there may be an opportunity here. Omer, you and I have been talking about it recently. There are opportunities for companies to save on costs and maximize efficiency and so on. And a lot of this relates back to the experiences of their customers. So, how is it that their customer experience, the voice of the customer that they're collecting, how does that help to minimize costs, improve efficiency, etc.?
Great question, Holly. So I think a lot of it really boils down to what a lot of business leaders are trying to accomplish today. So as you said, when we talk to many CX leaders, but not just CX, even other line of business leaders, the top priority today seems to be cost reduction, but also companies understand that while they reduce costs, they can't let go of their existing clients, let alone miss the opportunity to onboard new clients. So a lot of organizations are trying to achieve the two goals at the same time, create happier customers, but also reduce costs. So the role of voice of the customer programs is one that's critical from our perspective, and not just because I'm a customer experience analyst, but rather when we speak to the successful organizations out there that seem to balance cost reduction with customer satisfaction,
Right.
those are the companies that seem to really understand what's driving customer churn. So
Mm,
really looking at the voice of the customer data, doing the online surveys, IVR surveys, but also tracking customer journey insights. So really understanding what phases in the customer relationships are clients being unsatisfied and they stop doing business with the organization. So use of VOC really is critical in that area with the help of analytics to really find out what are the common causes of customer dissatisfaction and ultimately churn. And as we all know, for many industries, it's really more expensive to acquire a net new customer than retain an existing one. So that's really a
yes.
no-brainer for a lot of organizations as a reason why they tap into the voice of the customer insights to see how do we minimize customer churn. So that's one role for voice of the customer. Another one is inefficiencies. So whenever as a business you may observe inefficiencies, and that could be wrong billing, it could be shipping out the wrong items to your customers. It could be delays in handling an insurance claim. That automatically means frustrated clients, but also you may have to now make up for those inefficiencies as a business. So it's
Right.
adding to the cost of customer service. So by looking at voice of the customer data, we're seeing that a lot of businesses across many different verticals are tapping into the operational and CX insights to uncover what are the causes of inefficiency. Is there a sudden spike in delays in handling claims? If that's the case, for example, really finding the root causes so they can address the issues. And lastly, so third point is channel utilization. So as CX leaders are using a handful of channels to interact with their customers, when you're using the wrong channels or even when you're using the right channels, but you're using them ineffectively, that means that you're observing unnecessary costs. So a lot of businesses are really observing, are they able to address client needs by using each and every channel effectively? So I'll sum it up, pretty lengthy answer here, but overall, the very first benefit that companies observe by voice of the customer as it relates to cost of customer service and creating happier customers is determining what causes customer churn.
Yes.
Second way is by revealing inefficiencies. And third is uncovering how they benefit in utilizing the different channels so they can make sure they use each and every channel effectively.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I would imagine the best possible way to find out where your inefficiencies are is to ask people who are experiencing those inefficiencies. It makes absolute complete sense. Unfortunately, I think there are still some out there who aren't. And again, it seems like it would be just completely logical. There's one other area I wonder about. So there's a lot of companies out there. Any company who's running a voice of the customer experience program is using some sort of technology, or in many cases, multiple technologies in order to support their program. Um, that's a very big potential waste as well. If an organization has like 72 different technologies, there you can absolutely run into problems. One for standard surveys, one for on the phone, you've got one for digital. That's a huge challenge too, but there are ways to do better in a situation like that, aside from dumping every technology. What are you seeing? Are you finding a lot of companies now that are maybe looking to analyze the technologies that are supporting their customer experience? And what ways are there to try and streamline that experience where the customer might not even know it's happening, but on the back end, we've got a challenge?
The short answer is yes, we are seeing a similar trend, and also yes, that companies are trying to unify their technologies, moving away from many different disparate solutions.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily a bad thing to have, certain, multiple solutions across different business categories. If you need a solution in marketing, another one in customer service, that all makes sense. But when your solutions are not well integrated, that's causing a lot of headache for CX leaders. That's where the inefficiencies and complexities come in. In fact, we've recently wrapped up a survey, Holly, and that survey was around business resiliency. So how companies have responded to COVID in consideration of the impact that they've observed as a result of COVID. So that was a survey of 2,000 organizations around the globe across different industries, and then we looked at the responses across CX leaders. Here's what we found. The number one strategy by those firms is establishing visibility into what sort of change was happening in the business. So they can really pinpoint on what exactly are the technologies they need and are they using them the right way. But second top strategy speaks exactly what you just talked about. That is unifying the disparate solutions that's causing operational complexity. And I'll give you an example. I covered the contact center space pretty frequently and widely as a contact center analyst as well. And we've done a survey about 3 years ago, so it's been some time now. But back then we asked the question, on average, how many systems are contact centers using? 3 years ago, that number was 17 systems.
Oh my God.
There are 17 different
Wow.
systems. And for some companies, that was a lot higher. For some, it was fewer. But the point was 17 is a whole lot. And that's just the contact center function. Add to that marketing, sales, commerce, back office, IT. You can easily get to those 70 or more applications that you just talked about. So,
Nuts.
right? Isn't it just mind blowing for, and that was, by the way, for companies of all sizes. We haven't even just looked at large contact centers or large businesses. I'm sure for them it's even higher. So that's why a lot of CX leaders are now focused on how do I reduce that complexity? I just don't have the bandwidth to achieve my KPIs, to achieve my goals while I manage, a ton of different solutions. So that's why there is a trend out there now towards unifying the different technology solutions. And if you can't unify your whole technology stack, making sure that they are easy to integrate. So my suggestion is for any CX leaders out there that are tuning into our conversation, if you're looking to make any technology investments or upgrades, make sure that they're easy to integrate or unified. Because if you're not, that means that you're going to be spending your time managing technology as opposed to using technology to influence customer experiences. With
Yeah.
that said, I'm really, keen on your take. What are you guys seeing out there? I know you work with many different organizations too, so I'm curious to see, how does that 17 as a number for applications contact centers are using register with you, or are you seeing a similar trend towards integration and unification?
Absolutely. So, from our perspective, yeah, I don't know that I've ever heard of 17. That's actually a shocking number, but I'm consistently surprised by the number of technologies that are in place. And, not to seem completely self-serving or anything here, but we are Confirm It, so this is kind of the stuff we do. We are able to pull a lot of those bits together. We offer the digital piece. We have the survey piece. We have the contact center piece. So we've got that end-to-end solution. So we're constantly telling people, why are you paying for so much? And you've got some who legitimately have a reason for choosing an individual best of breed type of solution, in which case we advocate for tying it all together. We've got the integration capabilities, and you can bring it all in and then sort of use something like a Confirm It as your system of record, if you will, that pulls it all together. And the added benefit we find there is that on top of not having 72 systems, running all over the place, or at least you still have the 72 systems, but instead of having to go all these different places, you're able to tie it all together in one place to look at. But on top of that, you're actually able to tie the data together in ways where you get deeper insights as well. Where you can start to put pieces together, like putting the revenue bit alongside the customer experience. You can put dollar signs on people's opinions, which is really powerful information. You know, you want to get stakeholder buy-in across the organization, throw a couple of dollar signs in front of the fact that a customer's unhappy with something that's happening, and you'll be surprised how quickly people sit up and listen. So tying that information together is a huge added benefit. So I agree. Like I said, 17 is a bit shocking, but we see it all the time. And we're definitely, one thing that we've done with a few of our clients, actually, because we're also surprised frequently that many of the customers don't know how many technologies they've got across the organizations because of internal silos. Department A not talking to Department B, they have no clue. So one thing some of our clients have done is they've actually used Confirm It to run an internal survey to say, hey, what are you using what technologies are you using for this purpose? And that starts to at least expose part of the problem. And then they find what is the best solution for their needs. Maybe it's not Confirm It. I personally think it probably is, but then I'm biased. But maybe it's not, and that's fine. But as long as you know that those costs are justified and they're serving the means or the purpose that you need. So I couldn't agree more. It's a big challenge in many organizations. And I think that's really starting to come to light now as more and more companies are sitting up and saying, oh, we've got a problem. We're not making enough revenue anymore. We got to fix something.
Cool. Just to build on, what you just shared, Holly, around employee empowerment, right? So you got to make sure that your employees have visibility into VOC data. What sort of change is happening. In addition to that 17, as a number of systems that are used by contact centers, we've also run a separate survey that was launched earlier this year to really try to figure out what percentage of an employee's time, that employee could be in the sales department, marketing, elsewhere, what percentage of an employee's time is spent looking for customer information so they can handle the customer needs. Do you want to take a guess at what percentage could that be?
I would imagine it's exorbitant, but no, I'm not going to guess the percentage.
Sure. So, it was 14%, and it's been, it may not appear as high, but when you put some dollar signs, like you said, to it, it actually quickly adds up. So you have 14% of an employee's time spent looking for information. You got 500 employees, for example, across the business, which could be your typical mid-sized organization. Each employee is getting paid about $50K. You're looking at about $2 million in unnecessary labor costs because employees are not able to find the right information at the right time. So it really quickly adds up as a cost of labor, but also what about the cost of customer churn? Because the employees cannot find the right information they need to do their jobs.
Yeah, and I'll bet you can take it one step further than that. Not only the cost of the employee labor and the churn, what about the opportunity cost? What are they not doing when they're looking for customer information? The various campaigns that could be launched, or customer satisfaction things that ultimately relate back to churn, as you said, or launching a new business stream that, depending on who they are and what they're doing in the business, there's so many opportunities that could be lost in that 14% of their time. It is exorbitant, really. Wow. So we've been through a really rough time recently. Like I said, we get now, I think we've pretty well established in the first few minutes that it makes sense to be listening to the people who see your problems. Ask them, your customers. They see what's wrong, fix it. Technology is another area that companies are and should be looking at to see if they can streamline and save some of those costs. But what are some of the other strategies that people can use with VOC insights that can help them to ensure continuity and recovery during times like this? Heaven forbid it ever happens again and now.
Well, great question. So part of it is really planning, right? So like you said, you have to have a plan, on not after it happens on how to manage, but also after it happens, you have to understand the context of change. So in that same business resilience survey, we asked a question to companies on how customer demand changed for their business, and there seems to be a three different groups of businesses. So some businesses have indicated that customer demand has increased as a result of the pandemic. Those were, businesses in healthcare, e-commerce, and government and public sector organizations.
Right.
You had another group of organizations in retail, hospitality, travel, and airlines that said, they've seen a decrease in customer demand. All of those warrant different responses. You gotta, handle each and every, changing customer demands and how your specific set of clients or expectations have changed differently. So planning is critical in that area to understand, first of all, do you have a voice of the customer program that encapsulates all of the different customer touch points? So if you're missing out on capturing data across all of the different touch points, you may have relevant insights, but they may not be entirely applicable for the whole business. So if only your marketing team is using social media and you're only capturing voice of the customer data through social and online surveys, you're missing out on the opportunity to tap into contact center voice of the customer data. So that's part of it, really understanding what are the touch points that you're using as a business, so you start capturing data across those channels. Another one is making sure that the employees in the business have easy and timely access to those insights. And that's where the conversation started to change a little bit towards remote work. Because in an office environment, it's very easy for employees to start interacting with one another to learn, this particular account has issued a support, or we have a support ticket for this particular account. Don't call until we solve that issue. The typical sales and service alignment conundrum, or we're seeing a particular trend as a challenge or success in that particular vertical. It's easier to have those conversations in an office environment versus remote work. So what we recommend for companies is to start also utilizing unified communications tools and the voice of the customer platforms to make it easier to share VOC insights across the whole business, so the employees can still tap into the insights they need to do their jobs. And then a big part of it is not just collecting data, but also using the information. So a lot of CX leaders that we speak on a regular basis tell us that, we're doing a ton of surveys. Our survey response rates are increasing year after year, but we're not seeing a change in CSAT or NPS or the other metrics. So when you drill down into the reasons why, typically the most common reason why is because they're not using those insights. So a big part of it is really not just capturing the data, but also acting on it. And then lastly, in terms of business continuity, you've got to be more proactive. So when change happens, banks, for example, have seen a flood of inquiries come in for delays in mortgage payments, delays in other kinds of billing payments. And you have different ways to handle that, but the savvier organizations incorporated self-service. So if you're a consumer or a business client and you want to request a delay in your payments, you can interact with an intelligent virtual assistant or chatbot. But customers have to know that this is an option, that they don't have to wait for 2 or 3 hours to interact with a human being. So part of it really is when change happens, you've got to educate how you're not responding to change as a business, so your customers know that they have different options other than what they had before change happens.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, you pointed out before about the difference in finding out what I like to call the water cooler chats when you're working from home. And it's funny. Just today, I was struggling with that. I was looking to pull together some use cases and case studies and such. And I really started to miss the fact that I don't have that bump into sales in the kitchen, at the office kind of interaction. Because I'm not finding out what's happening here and there and everywhere. I mean, obviously, I can instant message them, I can email them, but it is a real challenge that we need to look at, especially considering that there's no real definitive timeline yet on when we're going back to work, or I should say back to the office. I haven't stopped working, but it's a thing. It's really a big challenge that every business needs to really start thinking about. how to make sure that that information is sharing across. And you're right, direct and easy access into the voice of the customer information settles that whole problem. Honestly, something that I really hadn't thought of before. So that's a great tip. Make sure everybody has equal access to see that information, because water cooler chats are out the window right now.
Yep.
So what about the role of automation? We want to be sure, if for companies, whether they have an existing VOC program or they're looking to make something new, they're going to have to make it something that is easily implemented and scalable and so on and so forth, to make sure that they're not adding to, the second point we were talking about costs. What is the role of automation in enabling firms to really maximize the benefits of their VOC program without breaking the bank?
Great, another great question is, when I look at in the picture of some of our research, Holly, it's almost like going from the top strategy towards the second and third strategy. So the business resiliency survey that I talked about early on, which we launched to really determine how CX leaders are now navigating the next normal. I don't really like the term new normal, but rather the next normal. How are the CX leaders operating against that? The very first tactic, as I mentioned early on, was to figure out how did the business get impacted, so you can really focus on the right areas. The second one was around reducing complexity related to technology, better integration and unification. The third response by CX leaders was increasing use of automation capabilities. And a big part of it is because companies do want to be able to reduce their labor costs while reducing inefficiencies related to manual processes. So when you think about those manual processes, what are they as it relates to VOC? You have a ton of voice of the customer insights coming through the different touch points. It could be online surveys, IVR, social media. But many organizations don't design customer journeys to adapt based on those VOC insights. So if you see a sudden drop, for example, in customer satisfaction rates, by looking into the VOC data, how quickly are you designing the customer journeys to address that? If it's happening in your marketing department, if your campaign response rates are dropping because of a certain message or change in customer needs, many organizations take a while until they launch their marketing campaigns. They're not agile. So a big part of it is with automation is it adds that agility for businesses, because you can constantly analyze data, and not just small amounts of data, but rather big data, structured and unstructured data across different channels. It helps with agility. Another benefit here is triggered workflows. As I mentioned early on, more and more businesses seem to rely on self-service. So self-service could be customers going on the website. It could be interacting with a chatbot, an intelligent virtual assistant. But those are great tools that really rely on automation, because that they help detect the context of a customer's issue based on the conversation over the phone or over text, and start launching trigger workflows. And ultimately, you can still ask customers about their sentiments. Did we do a good job in resolving your needs? Do you still need further assistance? So those are great touch points to further collect voice of the customer insights. And then lastly, with automation, you got employee guidance. So one of the challenges for employees, the reason why they're not able to act on insights is because, again, there's a lot of systems, right? So you got your CRM system, you got your customer service applications, your marketing applications. Employees may not be willing to use yet another system to log in to look at the voice of the customer insights. That ease of integration and automatically pushing relevant insights makes it a whole lot easier for employees to find the information they need to do their jobs.
Interesting. Okay. So we talked about how we can minimize costs, how we can improve efficiency, where technology fits in this whole thing. One more thing. What about potential for increasing revenue? It seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that VOC has an opportunity to help drive long-term innovation. So how can companies play with that? How can they leverage that potential for long-term innovation from their VOC program?
Great question. So I think cost cutting is a timely focus area now, but the CX leaders that are not reactionary, but rather strategic in how they handle change, are the ones that are positioning themselves for the next normal. So the way they position themselves is by looking into what are the areas that they can leverage to acquire net new customers or obtain customer referrals to increase their user base.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you 1 second? We just had somebody come through and say that your volume's a little low. Are you able to up it a little bit or maybe sit a little closer?
Sure. I'll try to keep the microphone a little bit
Oh,
closer.
perfect.
How about now?
Yes, that's good.
Perfect. So, well, one of the areas that the CX leaders are, able to drive innovation and boost customer experience results and revenue is by looking into the changes along the customer journey. Again, really revealing have customer needs changed to the point that they're demanding new product features. They're expecting new channels to be able to interact with clients, and retail is a great example for that. So many retail organizations that have been operating in store or in person that have not gone through the digital transformation journey have struggled as a result of the coronavirus because of the lockdowns. The ones that had digital capabilities also, fared in different spectrums. The ones that were doing well in terms of a user experience were the ones that were able to keep their clients, but also really, grow their user base, as opposed to companies that had digital channels, but they were not using them the right way. So, looking at the voice of the customer data, what I highly suggest is not just, looking at it from the perspective of what customer needs have changed over time, but also start realizing what changes do we as a business need to make to accommodate against that. So I talked about digital, for example. Expediting digital transformation happened to be the fourth top strategy for business resiliency. So when we go back to that business resiliency study I mentioned early on, where we studied responses from 2,000 businesses, the fourth top strategy was fast tracking the digital transformation journey. So digital is very important, but also take a moment to celebrate, pause, and recognize how did we do by using voice of the customer insights, not just in terms of cost reduction, but also have we been able to increase our revenue? Were we able to expand into new markets that were a part of the strategic focus? If so, recognize that and celebrate with the team, because a lot of the CX leaders that we're speaking with today are complaining that there's not entirely a broad organizational buy-in into the VOC program. Yes, we're doing a lot of VOC surveys. Yes, we're capturing data, but not every employee buys in to the value of VOC or utilizes it as much as they should. And they should, because it's a fantastic opportunity to have employees do their jobs better. So take a back seat, celebrate, share successes with employees, and say, look, this expansion into that particular market or winning this new account was enabled by those VOC insights. That's going to be critical for companies to foster long-term innovation and acquire more customers.
Yeah.
With that said, I'd love to get your take on that, Holly. I know you work with different businesses, not just for cost cutting, but also growing revenue. So I'd love to get your take on that.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different clients and people that, we interact with on a regular basis. There are so many opportunities from, I hesitate to call it just the VOC program, because there are opportunities for business building that, yes, they're coming from your customers. So people seem to get this blinders view on about what customer experience is. And all they think is that it's making the customer happy at any and all cost. Basically give your product away for free and then everybody will smile. But it's not. It is a business opportunity, and I think it's an opportunity that has the potential for impact across the organization. A couple of areas we've been kind of advocating quite a bit recently is getting the VOC people who have that expertise in getting the data and analyzing it and knowing how to read it, put them together with the marketing team. And I'm not talking about the fact that sometimes VOC sits under marketing. And I realize that's the occasional organizational structure, but I'm talking more about get marketing to understand that when we're talking about voice of the customer, there is such a massive overlap, or at least information that could be fed in from voice of the customer into customer marketing. There are your cross sells, there are your upsells. If you looked into it, if you tried, information, what you're describing, the innovation information, What about getting your product management team involved in that? Let them understand what the customers are demanding. The opportunities are massive, and we do see a fair number of customers going after it, and some that are going, no, 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 that's not customer experience. And I'm going, yes, yes, it is. It's truly, that's what the customer experience is. It's not just about what you're doing right now. It's about fixing it and doing better in the future. And that goes way beyond just making the customer smile because you fixed a minuscule problem. So it's trying to get people to think bigger about what the potential that they can bring in with their voice of the customer program.
Yeah, I agree. I feel, a lot of, especially in the smaller and mid-sized organization side, a lot of CX leaders or boards or CEOs may be looking at CX programs as, yes, we need it, but it's really about, the branding or the customer's feelings. But when you take a step back, it actually is very much influencing the top line and bottom line revenue. So back to your previous point, once you start putting dollar signs in front of the
Yes.
cost of not managing customer experience or the poor customer experiences, that's when everyone's eyes are opening, saying, gosh, I can expand to this account. I can, minimize cost of customer churn. I can grow my revenue, improve profit margins. I could do all that by understanding customer needs, mapping customer journeys, and leveraging that data to meet and exceed customer expectations. So, it requires a little bit more of an understanding and appreciation of customer experience from the perspective of having it be more driven by data as opposed to less data driven objectives in the business.
I agree. I agree entirely. And I think there's, to expand beyond that is what the data you're looking at ties back to, because it should be tying back to something of value. And that value isn't necessarily NPS or CSAT. Those are fantastic KPIs, fantastic metrics, but do they actually mean anything across the business to the powers that be? Does the CEO really understand NPS? Really? Or are you able to show some sort of tangible linkage between what that NPS means and what kind of dollar signs that can bring? So it's making sure that whatever your objectives are in one way or another, whether it's the standard boxed idea of customer experience or broadening it out to the innovative areas, making sure that's linked to some sort of business objective that's going to deliver the long-term positive impacts that the organization needs. So we covered a lot in just a little while, but we have gotten to just about the end of our run here. Omer, it was fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. I had a really good time, and I think this was really useful information. I hope it's very helpful to everybody who is going to watch it or who has watched it. You can learn from all sorts of fun things. I know that we've actually, based on, because surprise, surprise, we actually talked before we did this live stream. We've had conversations before, so no big surprises, but at the same time, it did give us an opportunity to put together a few pieces of sort of summary information about what you learned here. So if you didn't memorize every single word that Omer and I said, it's okay. Within a short period of time, we are going to be putting that out, probably on our website. But of course, you can reach out to confirm it directly if you would like to get those summary sheets that will provide a quick overview of what we discussed today. And hopefully you can apply it in your program, in your business, in order to sort of, get back to where you want to be or grow to where you want to be. So do contact us if you want that. Otherwise, just check out the confirmit.com website and look at our resource center for that within the next couple of days. Omer, thank you so much, and to everybody who is watching this, thank you, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Think from Home, where we will also be drinking from home, and that's it for now.